on to declarations of interest. Any members interested additional to those on the agenda? Any member? I can declare an interest myself in the Nuneaton Federation. They are affiliated to run the community centre where I'm a director, and they're also raising funds for ministry. Items of public consultation, which the public will be asked to speak after the reports have been given, and in the order that they've come into the scrutiny officer. You have 3 minutes to speak. A member of the public, I am quite strict on the 3 minutes.
3 minutes, Chair. Three.
I'll move to the allotment report on item 6. As the chair of this committee, the report is before you with recommendations. It was somewhat disappointing that the select committee had to meet again. It was nice that the allotment people came forward to give evidence at the meetings, and the report has highlighted some issues in terms of the strategy, which we will be looking at. We'll be reconvening after the elements of this review have gone forward, as that needs updating up to 2022. I can thank all those involved in the report, the BJC, Nuneaton Federation and the Bolton Allotment Association for their assistance, and it was nice to see how much you're all doing on your allotment site, and we hope that this report will move things forward. I will move on to the speakers. The first speaker I have is Robert Max.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to mention the paragraphs that I'm going to talk about, and then basically give you the text. My name is Robert Max. I have been on Marston Lane allotments along with my wife for the last 28 years. I've been secretary at that site for the last 5 years, and I'm also secretary to the Bedworth District Horticultural Council. First item is the glossary. It says, and we did advise you at the meeting on the 9th of March, we are BDHC, which stands for Bedworth and District Horticultural Council, not society. Item 2.1, which talks about allotment associations to pay an annual contribution to the council proportionate to its size. We've worked it out that this would work out, depending on which site it was, between £6.62 per plot and £18.72 per plot. Item 2.3, nothing has been specified as to what these management arrangements are. Item 2.4, BDHC has never refused, as a democratic organisation, we act on the instructions of our membership. The header lease was not the first lease offered. This was an idea put forward by the NFAA and taken on board by the council. 2.5. Does this mean you're not looking for any future input from the three associations? 3.11. The review in 2012 was the first for the council. There is no mention of Boltington in here. 3.12. There was no header lease in 2012. All leases would be between the Borough Council and the associations. There had never been a header lease until it was proposed by the Nuneaton Federation. 3.14. It was never agreed when proposed to the members. They said they wanted individual leases with the council. It was a democratic decision by the membership not to have or take the header lease. 3.15. The membership have always insisted on the BDHC management team carrying out the negotiations on behalf of its members. 316. Since when did BDHC require legal authorisation? BDHC is a fully constituted council which has been in existence since 1946. Do Nuneaton and Bolkington have legal authorisation? And 321. Following the introduction of the allotment strategy in 2012 to 2017, the allotment strategy that's gone through and been accepted by the council is in fact 2012 to 2022. I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. Any members got any points of clarification?
Thank you, Chair. I believe you had, well, we got part way through the list of points. Did you have any further information further on that you thought we'd find useful?
Not really. We were told we get 3 minutes and that's it. So we're concentrated on dealing with the 3 minutes and the points that you've raised in here, which we believe to be inaccurate.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robin Wilson.
Mrs. Maggs first, please.
We did ask that my wife...
I know we normally take them in the order they've been put in by, because that's how we work, but
I did actually...
I know that's normally how it
Mrs.
works.
Rand
As they come in, we take them in order.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Pamela Maggs and have been a plot holder at Marston Lane for 28 years. I was the first female plot holder. There were very few other plot holders and they were mostly elderly men. They laid bets that I would not last more than 3 weeks. Now there are 16 female plot holders out of 49. I'm proud of that. I'm going through the paragraphs as well because it's impossible to do it else. Paragraph 331, at the meeting on the 31st of January 2017, 8 out of the 10 sites were represented. This demonstrated how concerned the Bedworth sites were. 336. This resulted in monies no longer being available for the day-to-day repairs that had previously been carried out. This statement, I find, is at odds with the allotment strategy 2012-2022. See paragraph 11.3, which I find ambiguous. 338. Where individual allotment associations indicated concerns related to trees, arrangements were made for these to be subsequently re-inspected by our tree officer. Requests have been made for written evidence of the work which has been carried out in the event of some claim occurring in future associations. They would like to be able to defend any possible litigation. Paragraph 3.3.10 mentions a side letter. This side letter has been discussed fully with the BDHC membership and the revised wording agreed. This has now been returned to the Council's legal officer and a reply received. This has now been received by the membership. Paragraph 3.3.12 about the committee about Smorrell Lane Association. What is the relevance of this statement? 342. BDHC members have been self-financing for over 2 decades. To say that BDHC would not take responsibility for the Bedworth allotment associations is not true. BDHC has been preparing its membership for the advent of new leases since they were first discussed. Included in this was the setting up of a website, and the provision of a range of documents which each member could adopt. I'm proud of our allotment association. I'm pleased that local children have the opportunity to attend the 21 raised beds provided by our association. They also have access to the composting toilet, which members funded and installed. Children are our future. My life as a teacher has led me to believe this. Thank you. Sorry?
Has any member got any further clarification? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Robin.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors. Well, let's start off on the option 2. Regarding the select committee were advised that if the allotment associations were not prepared to sign the proposed new leases, there would be a legal consideration in regard to repossession of the land. I consider that, and BDHC and Smurl Lane Allotment Association consider that as blackmail, virtually blackmail. Further on, a merger was discussed and rejected by BDHC membership. There is no mention of getting Bulking to join with the NFAA, and the statement to achieve the desired outcome. Whose desired outcome is it in that paragraph? Paragraph 346. The proposed formula for contribution to the council proportionate to its size is not acceptable to BDHC. 347. No allotment association is running at a deficit. Some may have very little by way of reserves. Associations are not there to make vast profits. I believe that assertion came when I, as Smurl Lane, said we run at a loss once we factored in tree surgeons and everything else once we became self-managed. 348. There's no mention in this paragraph as to the financial stability otherwise of the NFAA or Bulkington members. Is this another knock at the Bedworth Associations and BDHC? 3.4.10. Another false statement. It was always understood that the production of the TANs would be a joint programme involving the council and the associations. 3.4.11. This is the first indication that the TANs would need to be tailored to each site. BDHC feels that it is already what it needed to produce TANs for its members. It's just there has been a lack of leadership from the council. I would like to move on, Chair, that's the report we would like to cover finished, to the side letter. As the previous speaker said, we received this side letter, and I believe Robert has forwarded to the legal department that yes, we accept the wording, the new wording to the side letter. And as a result of this, and to move things forward, we've been going on 5 years now, we feel that it needs to be moved forward. And this side letter, although not all what we wanted, I believe is as good as we're going to get. So we will accept the wording in the side letter. So in view of that, I believe that we have now got a fair chance as BDHC to recommend to our members that we sign the lease as proposed earlier. That's it.
Any members got any points of clarification? No? Okay. Mr. Clay.
I'm Doug Clay, I'm chairman of Bowling Green Lane Allotment Association. We've got some very good news. Yesterday, the tree that we've had a lot of trouble with was felled, and it is to our satisfaction. That was portrayed back to the BDHC, and that helped them make the comment just made to you. I'm not very happy that it's took well over 4 years. It's more than 4 years. It's been at least 6 years since I recollected. And it is time that that should be stopped. Listening to some of today's kind of situation, I can understand some of the reasons why. I'm not very happy either with the tremendous attack on Bedworth District Horticultural Council. Because basically what you're doing, you're attacking every allotment in Bedworth. That BDHC is formed from members of the allotments of the various areas, Bowling Green Lane, Nuneaton, Smaller Lane, etc. When we have meetings, which is regular, we have discussions and then make decisions. The officers can't override what we say, they do what we say, i.e. the header lease. They might have wanted to have a header lease. The allotments didn't, and we won on that vote unanimously, actually. So that's really all I've got to say. I'm not too happy with some of the conduct that's going on. The last information I saw, we had a meeting on the 31st of January, and I thought it was really good. And the chair seemed very interested in some of the things that hadn't been done. And luckily, it looks like somebody must have put a bit of up somebody's, and got things moving, because now we're very, very close to signing, and I don't see a big problem whatsoever. But it's took a heck of a long while, and it could have been managed a lot better. Thank you.
Any members got any points of clarification? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Ian Carpenter. I'm the Secretary of Borough Lane Allotments. I've been a member on that allotment for about 20 years. And for my sins, I was elected as Secretary about 4 years ago. As Doug has touched on, we didn't quite like the wording in the last piece of paper that came out about not talking to our council. We thought that was wrong and quite disrespectful, to be honest. We, as allotments in Bedworth, will always go to our meetings, which are quarterly. They are run efficiently and correctly. BDHC are our voice, and they will continue to be our voice. I think you've got a difficult job. We know that there's money cut everywhere, and we sympathise, with the council. They've got to put the money where they can. Allotments, to me, are one of the groundswells of life in Bedworth. It's a community thing. It's not just old men in flat caps anymore. Those days are long gone. It was considered a bit, when Monty Dunn started it, as sexy gardening as a term. People were coming back onto allotments. We've got families down there. It's nice when we can see kids learning that beans and peas don't come from Tesco's. They actually come out of an allotment. They know where they come from, and the taste is fantastic when it's straight off the plant. And these are the things that allotments bring to the community. We don't want to lose the allotments. We are, I would think, 99% certain now that we will sign. It's gone on long enough, there's no doubt about that. But I do go back to that BDHC are our voice. And I think it's my time. That's it. Cool.
Any
Just
members got
pointing
any
it, Chair.
points of clarification? No? Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Councillor Calderwood.
Thank you very much, Chair. I spent a lot of my life as a child on allotments. We had an allotment off Milford Street, which is part of the Greenmore Road allotments. Absolutely essential to keep our allotments. Not only do they help people get cheap food, nutritious food, they also play a massive part in the ecology, the absorbing rainwater. There's just so much an allotment does for our town in terms of breaking up the urban mass, etc. A couple of things I just wanted to add in, because I saw it in the report, was the issue of trees. We're forever losing trees in this borough, and they play a vital part. It's taken me ages, and there's still one tree we need to get out of Cleaver Gardens, which is, yeah, it looks very unsafe. But we also need to plant new trees and have new wildlife areas. And I'm quite glad, looking in the back of these, the tables of what's happening with the allotments, that some of them are doing wildlife areas and things. But I do think we need to actually try and get compensation for the loss of trees, so it actually balances out. Trees play such a vital part. The second thing I wanted to say is about new developments. We've got a vast amount of new developments going on in Wellington with postage stamp sized gardens. Yeah, the soil's just been trucked in this heavy clay. Yeah, these people really need to be attracted to allotments. Yeah, it's a massive opportunity for them to get a reasonable bit of fresh air and reconnect with nature. So I do hope the new housing and old housing is actually told about the allotments in their welcome packs and really encouraged to get a next generation and new people involved. Yeah, it is. Yeah, being a Green, I'm really passionate, and I've visited some allotments. The Higham Lane Allotment Association has open days every now and then, and I've been up to the Greenwald Road allotments that have got their lovely shed now and things going on there. Yeah, it is a massive asset, and we do need to both invest in them and make them sustainable financially. Thank you, Chair.
Members got any questions on the Any officer wish to respond to any of the public questions? The recommendation.
Sure. Could I just ask a question, please?
You can.
The letter that's been referred to quite a few times, I take it that's the letter on page 47 of paperwork. And is that the complete letter? It seems like we've got half a letter here. And
I think, Chair, that's there's been there have been some further changes to it following some comments from BDHC, which we've gone back on. From what's been said, I understand that they're accepting those changes that we've made to their changes, so that we've got a final version, if you like.
okay.
But
Well,
it's very similar to that. There are a few changes, but not significant changes.
well, thank you for that. But I do have to make the comment then, as a member sitting here that's got, in judgment or something, or looking at something and getting the best out of it, I've been presented with, if you like, half a letter. And then apparently there's other letters that follow on. Now, I'm not sure why I've got half a letter or why I haven't got the rest of the letter. I just feel that comment needs to be made.
I hear about another.
I will say, thank you, Chair, that obviously the fact you've only got half a letter here is an error of printing.
Yeah.
They've obviously missed it.
That's the whole thing.
The reason that this letter is in this report is because that has happened since the report and the working group finished, and that's why that's why that is not included in your paperwork. That letter, the amended letter has happened since the working group finished.
Yeah. Okay.
I do agree with you, Councillor Coughlin, that should have been in the pack.
It wasn't ready, Chair. No. It could have perhaps been
Regulated. Any other member? Councillor Glass.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. There's when I looked at this, I was really concerned about some of the recommendations, but you can understand why the allottees have went through 3.46 option to 3.48, etc., etc. It's very forensic, shall I say? There's obviously there's some things that have jumped out to them and which they're not particularly happy about, and over the years I don't think it's did anybody any favours. And I've got to admit, when I seen option 2 on page 18, not only was I flabbergasted if that's the right word, as I thought, hold on a minute. But as councillor before me had just spoken and says about the side letter, the Bedworth District Council allotment leases, all the talking and everything else that goes in front of this report or about this report seems to be superseded by the letter we have not seen. And this letter that we haven't seen as a council has been agreed by the Allotment Association, the Bedworth Council. And speaking on, not on behalf of the Bedworth Council, but as somebody has had a lot of dealings with it, I have never had an allotment, and I do not want to have one. Over the years, I know in particular my local allotment, this Morrow Lane allotment, I was very active within the local school, getting the kids to get involved, and they've got their own. So I see, rather than them being a nuisance, as which come through this report, in my eyes, they've been very helpful and very courteous and doing things in a democratic manner. Because if you turn around and you say that they have regular meetings and have discussions, etc., that's the way it should be done, rather than individual allotments doing their own thing. There's a collective here, and it seems to be a positive collective as far as I'm concerned. So if the argument is around this side letter, which has been agreed since these papers have been produced, can we accept that the side letter is what should be in front of this committee, and that's what we should be agreeing today, if that is the case, Chair?
Obviously, the side letter has been going backwards and forwards to the allotments and the legal team. It's obviously got to have the legal aspect to it, as you would expect. I have sent Shirley to go and get copies so you can have a look. I said, because it literally, I think it came back today. Small if possible.
I don't know whether we've had it back.
No.
Yeah. It has.
Yes.
Today.
I sent it back to Rita today.
Today.
So it's only come back into this forum today.
But going on from that, just reinforcing that, Chair. So there was, in actual fact, there is an agreement and a way forward, which is acceptable to everybody.
The allotments, the legal team,
Okay,
it's got to be legally binding, obviously.
of course.
So I will take the other speakers, then I will bring yourself in, then hopefully Shirley will be back with the letters by then. So I've got Councillor Copland.
I'm happy if someone wants to go
Oh.
before me, because I've spoken, but I would like to come back to you.
Prior to you, but it's, yes, thank you, James. Yeah, as has been said by Councillor Glass, and I agree with option 2. The fact that the council would even consider a repossession of the land, I think is quite disrespectful and actually surprising, to be honest. And I certainly think they shouldn't even suggest something like that. I mean, it's a good thing it's a hypothetical situation. With the report itself, I do agree that some of the language used was quite tactless, and I'm sure that a lot of it was unintentionally so. So whoever wrote this, I'd definitely should just think about the language more. I mean, I'm sure that the contents, there are inaccuracies which were flagged up very well by the members of the allotment associations, but I think broadly speaking, if the allotment associations are happy, then we should be happy too. I mean, there is that, well, they said 99% happy with it. We should still listen to that 1%, because if there's any reservations, and we should know about them, so that if there's any problems further down the line, the councillors here can try and do something about it. So that's all I have to say, really.
Councillor Lloyd.
Yes, initially from the people sitting down and talking and coming across, I didn't think anyone was totally satisfied the way we conduct ourselves and the arguments that's gone on and what's happened with them and the way they've been dealt with. But at the end of each time, they said they received the letter later and that all of them were on the verge or near enough ready to sign whatever. I'm pleased actually to see this, that can be done whatever, because the report there, too, in my eyes, is a very disgusting option to be put forward to anybody. And I'm sure this committee would not sit back and have took that. We would have, I think we might have just sent somebody in to get themselves sorted out and talk to lotties that we were going to, our own people, our own lotties, and we were going to take the courts and we were going to take land off them and we were going to do all because we got a disagreement. And every one of them had complained about how the way our officers have been treated or the way this council has been treating them and doing whatever. I thought we might have been the best way is to sit down and try and resolve the problem rather than threaten in that way, because I really, as I say, John has touched on that, this letter has come forward since that, so we don't overtext to comment on the other now is, well, it's a comment because it's a report in front of us, isn't it? And I'm certainly not happy with all the report. But with the letter in front of us and the associations are sitting down and quite prepared to sign and get the thing resolved in that. That is a massive, from the sounds of it, 5-6 years, a massive step forward. I'm pleased to hear that the trees are being cut and some of the trees have been sorted, because I think Small Lane had one. I'm not quite sure if they've sorted all that out. That's the argument last time I heard, that we couldn't threaten them to do this and do the other, because we were going to bankrupt them. And so it has moved greatly forward. It's a shame that the letter wasn't produced in full to us, and then maybe we wouldn't have had all the report. But this, for God's sake, solve our problems and get their allotments being sold and go and buy some fresh fruit. Well, our kids can.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I love maths, and when I hear the figure 99% certain, I'm happy, because that tells me that things are there and should actually be finalised to everyone's, well, maybe satisfaction isn't the word, because, well, we are where we are and we know why we're where we are, lack of funds, local government and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to go all over that. But when I hear the 99% certain, that makes me happy. I do wish I'd had the letter and the complete letter. I might have had a bit of a better understanding about exactly where we are at this point. I do have to say, when I read option 2, my initial thinking was, as colleagues have mentioned, but I'm also aware that all options have to be put down there, probably for legal reasons. It has to be. Now, as far as I'm concerned, like others on this committee, option 2 is a non-runner. To paraphrase the words of John McEnroe, the famous tennis player, "You're no serious, pal," would be the words I would say to that, because there's no way I can go along with even the thinking of that. There's a bit in it that actually confuses me as well. In about the 4th, 5th line down of option 2, it talks about the allotment association would then be wound up. But who would wind it up? Who does the allotment association? It gives the impression that the council would wind it up. I'm not aware, I'm a bit confused by that. Surely the allotment association belongs to the members of the allotment association. So even if the allotment was taken off them, they could still exist. So that bit in there, unless I'm wrong, is wrong. But that's by the by, if you like. The one thing I would like to add, and it has been mentioned sort of by one of the speakers, about when new development happens in an area. I've argued quite long on this council that we get 106 money, which has shortly become SIL money from new developments, and we get it for play areas, and the county council asks for various things that to do with schools, libraries and all that sort of thing. We as a council should be asking for more. And I think this would be an ideal thing to be asking for that sort of money for allotments. And I'm sure there's other things we could look at for money to go towards that. Because allotments, although like my colleague before me, I've been offered an allotment plot many a time. And no, not for me, I'm afraid. I'll be honest, it's too much hard work. And that's being absolutely honest. But I've also got friends that have an allotment and leave little baskets of fruit and, well, not fruit, but vegetables at my front door. Hey, that sounds great to me. They're doing the hard work and I'm getting the fruits of their labour. But allotments are vital and they've been around for goodness knows how long, and it's really good to look at the work in here that they do with the community. It's fantastic. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Glass.
Yeah, thank you. If I can come back then. I understand what Councillor Copeland is saying there about the strategy. Now, we did actually say the strategy would be the next step forward. So I'm hoping that as part of that strategy there will be some back and forth with the allotment associations to see which way to go forward. Whether we should use SIL money or whether we can, or possibly identify things in the future which is going to assist and help all the allottees within the borough. Saying that, Chair, I would sincerely hope we can get something set up, some sort of, I don't know, advisory board or panel to actually sit down with us and have a look at the future strategy of the allotments within the borough, because I, like many others, think they are very, very important. So, Chair, in order to take the discussion forward, I maybe word this wrongly or badly, but if we as a panel were to accept the side letter, the one that we've got in front of us now, as a way forward, would that be a recommendation that we'd be able to go to the Cabinet, and then the Cabinet would take that forward? Presumably by the time it gets to the Cabinet, it will be fully worked out with signatures, legal and otherwise.
In terms of the side letter, obviously it might be all the allotments are signed before it goes to Cabinet, because I believe the next Cabinet is until May. Sometime?
24th of May, Chair.
So they might have all been signed by then. So there might be the need. The recommendations are there on page 14. And while I understand it was quite a hard panel to chair, as you can imagine. And obviously we had to consider all options. That's why option 1, option 2 and 3 are in there, and that was through legal considerations as well. Is there anything you want to add?
No, Chair. Clearly, my understanding of the position as far as BDHC was concerned was that if we could agree the wording for the side letter to give some comfort to those associations that have got concerns, that they would then sign the original leases that were sent to them some time ago. So, from what I've heard, I think that's where we are in terms of next steps. So, picking on John's point, I don't know whether you need to approve the side letter or not. I mean, the side letter is purely a document that is to sit alongside the lease in any event. But you know, if it gives the BGHC any comfort, if you want to endorse the side letter, that's absolutely fine. And then we can pursue getting the various leases signed up. PDQ.
If that's, Chair, if I may, if that's the legal point that we've actually got to do that, to highlight this side letter, I'll formally propose that then.
Councillor Barnett to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I've enjoyed being part of this select committee. I'd like to thank you personally for helping me with the guidance of how these things work. I still consider myself to be a fairly new councillor, and therefore my learning curve is still pretty steep. It explained an awful lot about how the bureaucracy of a council works, and that might explain some of the seemingly obtuse letters and terminology. But I think if there's anybody in here, in this room, that's been a landlord, you might understand why there has to be a landlord-tenant agreement, there has to be an understanding on both sides. But again, I'd just like to repeat, thank you very much. It was most interesting, and I look forward to future select committees and working parties, which I will definitely try and be part of.
So are we happy to endorse the side letter? And does anybody want to send any of the other recommendations to Cabinet?
Excuse me, Chair. Can I just add one more thing? Yeah, as part of the select committee, it was explained to us how new developments have the opportunity for new allotment sites. Again, I'm not sure as I understand it fully, but that option is available and is all, as was indicated earlier, is part of the 106 process. So we could end up with more allotments in Nuneaton if there was the requirement for them.
And Bedworth, of course, and Bedworth, of course.
So I apologise. Whenever I say Nuneaton, I mean Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough area. I'm bound to make that mistake again.
Well, you always do. We can understand it, the party you belong to.
So we need a seconder for Councillor Grass's
Second
that regarding the side letter, and does any member wish any of the recommendations? 2.1 to go forward to Cabinet. Yes. So the side letter, are we happy for that to go forward?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll go forward to Cabinet, obviously, as well. So, 1.
Yep.
We've got an issue with 1 staying in. 2.
I think that's superseded.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Say that. Right. Go on.
2, no. 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
4.
Well, we're not hearing today that they would
No,
rather it
no,
go
yeah.
through, so I'm not sure that one's
No.
appropriate.
Okay.
No.
5.
We're deleting 4.
Get forward.
5.
Yep, 5.
Yeah.
Fine.
And 6.
Yep.
Yep, 6, yeah.
And can I say that the actual meetings in regard to looking at the allotment strategy will be starting very soon, most probably within a fortnight, because obviously that needs to be done, and obviously the allotment site will be called in to make suggestions and look at the strategy with us. That's what I would expect.
Okay.
So we're happy for those to go forward. All those in agreement, please show. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 7. You stated like to.
I'll use that goal.
Something in there. Thank you.
Item 7. Presented by Paul Davis, Field.
Thank you, Chair. This is a short report. I won't go through it verbatim. I'll just pick out certain salient points. This is a follow-on report to the report of March 16, and it's just to give a flavour of where we are with allotments, with cemetery land or cemetery provision within the borough. So I'll go straight to point 5 in the report. as I say, pull out a few salient points. The full phase 2 appraisal has been completed at Marston Lane, and that was completed in September 16. It's a very detailed report, and in essence, the land is suitable for burial purposes if Cabinet or the Council decide to take that option forward. As it is a recreational space, it still is in its definition. We've got to ascertain the agreement of Sport England before any planning application is brought forward. In a way, that is tied into the playing pitch strategy as well, which Councillor Lloyd is going to chair, and that starts in May, and they're going to look at the playing pitch strategy and how, I think Councillor Watkins is a member of that, I think there's a member of that group as well. So that's tied in with that. So how and when that is brought forward at Marston Lane will be dictated to by a number of different elements, and no doubt that will form part of a further update to the scrutiny panel in due course. The Muslim burial area, we've created additional burial space for the Muslim community, should I say, within Ouston Road. That has been ongoing over the last couple of months. I think that we may have completed the sorting of that, or it's nearly in completion. So that area's been sorted and seeded, and hopefully over the next couple of months will blend in and be look like the rest of the cemetery. We have had ongoing meetings with various funeral directors. Phil and I have been to those, where we've met with them, with Councillor Lloyd as well, and discussed the various options that are available to us across the borough. But the main sticking point has been the fact that we still haven't found any additional land within the Nuneaton area for additional burial space, and that is an ongoing situation. It may be that now the borough plan is moving towards where it's going, moving on its journey, that the land may come out of that, but that obviously, that again is down the line, and again that will be brought back to a future scrutiny panel for discussion. Ouston Road, as members may be aware, the cemetery lodge is no longer. There's now a pile of bricks on the floor. In fact, I think the bricks may have disappeared. Demolition is well on. There's demolition work over the next 2 or 3 weeks to clear the land, to put the house, clear the adjacent building that we used as a small depot for many years, to clear the ground, and probably it's been a little bit delayed because we need to start until April. We're looking at July for, again, that area to be completely prepared, seeded, and start to establish itself. It probably won't be available for use probably till the autumn time. The rest of the report kind of details the potential way it could be laid out. This isn't set in stone as of yet. It kind of talks about full burial plots, crematory remain plots, but that will be determined by need. As we go along, we'll use an area at a time, and we're at about 73% of cremations at the moment so burials have taken a dip. So it may be that we have to prepare more crematorial remains areas. We believe that we've probably given ourselves 6 or 7 years worth of additional space by, and the plan on the back just basically identifies the areas. That is where we're at. Have you got any questions then?
Any member? Mr. Sheikh, would you like to speak? Did you indicate? I apologise for that.
Madam Chair, members and officers of the Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council, this is how I would have normally kind of started, but sandwiched between allotments and ground maintenance. We're talking about cemetery provision, and I feel it more appropriate to address the gathering as fellow residents of the borough and take an egalitarian approach, because one day or another, each one of us will have to be facilitated by the cemetery provision that the borough has. Really thankful to Paul and his colleagues for the hard work that's been taken. Under 5.2, there is talk about the current position and a full phase 2 appraisal. And we feel it would be helpful if there is some indication given regarding plot capacity at Marston Lane in the widest kind of scheme of things, so that we can focus our minds on what could and what should or what may be achieved. With regards to the existing cemetery lodge site and the other land that's sort of been made available, there's about 270 additional burial plots that have become available. As members of the Muslim Community Forum, which I'm speaking on behalf of today, the forum is made up of various Muslim organizations, women's groups, youth groups, sports groups, charities, and recreational groups. For us, as people of faith, like with others, other people of faith, and indeed people of no faith, death and issues surrounding death are really, really key considerations. We believe that if we haven't learned how to die, then we really haven't learned how to live. That's the take that we take on this issue. So moving forward, what we would request that in any consideration that are given in terms of allocation, that we look at containment, because a lot of people visit the Poston Road Cemetery once a week at least, usually on Fridays, and then during the month of Ramadan and at certain other religious events. And there is a change in the trend that we are seeing, which is a positive trend, that women themselves on their own are actually, feeling confident, despite the atmosphere that's out there and the Islamophobia. They're feeling confident to go to the cemetery and spend time by the graveside of their dear ones. So if whatever provision is made available, currently they're able to sort of walk it to the cemetery and come back if they choose to. That whatever facilities are made available, that if the Euston Road site and the additional spaces that are being made available, if they are in a way considered as an offset for anything else that might be made available elsewhere. We look forward to the detailed report on Marston Lane and see how we as a community and residents of the borough can help the deliberations with Paul and his colleagues. Just to finish off, we've had a minor confusion with regards to the use of tractor during sort of internment, and it's a minor confusion but with major consequences, and we're meeting with Glendale colleagues and Paul on the 3rd of next month to iron out issues. That's all I have to say. Happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Have you got any points of clarification? No? It's fine. Move on to members. Any member?
Thank you.
Just ask one question, Paul. In terms of this unallocated land that left to the main access,
Yeah.
is that as part of the cemetery lodge, or is this just a piece of land that...
It's a piece of land that had never been buried in. It had a shrub bed placed on it. It was more ornamental because it was part of the entrance, but we've reached a point where needs must, if you like. So it's being brought into the overall. We took it as an opportunity to look at all the additional bits of land that were potentially available.
Members are happy with the report and the way it's moving forward.
Yeah.
The new allocation that will give us a few more years while we wait for some more land coming forward. Members happy to move the report?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 8, on the ground maintenance contract. So which one's presenting it? Got yourself,
I'll lead
Anthony,
off because, and I will then defer to,
Yes.
obviously after, if obviously you've got speakers, but I will defer to Glendale as well.
Mhm.
So I will just give a brief, again, a very brief press, so you can see how many bits of green I've got here. Not many of hazy to add. We last reported in November, and from November through to now, ground masons doesn't stop, but grass cutting and traditionally what you see, the flowers, etc. There's a lot less work. There's a lot more work goes into the infrastructure maintenance. So a lot of what the work they've done over the winter has been infrastructure maintenance based. So that is reflected somewhat in the shortness of the report. It has been very mild over the winter. I don't have to tell you that. You know that. But that's becoming more the norm. But as a consequence of that, things are not slowing down. Everybody's grass continues to grow at a rapid rate, and that has been an issue at the start of the year. Fortunately, we haven't had a lot of rain, and the temperatures haven't gone mad, so the grass is holding. And the first cut of the year, I think you've got you're about round now on the first cut of the year, and that the grass is holding throughout the Borough. In fact, we're on the second cut in a lot of places. So that's a reasonable start to the year. It's a good start, it's a reasonable start to the year. We've had a lot of shrub bed removal over the winter. We've had a lot of reduction pruning over the winter. Took a lot of beds out in places where we've had a lot of customer complaints in the past. So that we've tried to make life easier for people, because it's what they got outside their houses. Grass cutting started in March, as I've alluded to, and maintenance is now well on. We've also, as you're aware, we've target hardened a number of sites throughout the borough in an attempt to stop traveller incursions. We're into April. I won't say any more. It's the work we've done seems to have had an impact, which is good. Glendale Live, which is referred to in here and was referred to in the previous last year or in November when we spoke, I will defer to Barry and Andy to talk about, because I wouldn't do it justice. So these gentlemen can do that. In regard to monitoring, performance from October through to January, because this report was written in February, it was deferred. So unfortunately, they're a little bit out of date. Not going back to the previous report. Formal monitoring was well above the requirement. Was 80%. He said at 80%. In January it was 89%. And informal monitoring, although it was poor, and in the main due to cut and collect. And again, I will defer to these guys, because cut and collect is something these guys will be putting something in place for this financial year. Has increased to 67.5 against a need of 65%. I will come back to customer satisfaction. Summaries and rectifications, we're looking at 21 over that period, October to February. Majority was shrub bed maintenance and weeds. Again, we are working with Glendale in regard to how they attack their shrub beds and the methodology they're going to adopt going forward. Customer satisfaction, it can only be described as poor. There's no other way to describe it. I think later in the performance report, that he's identified in the performance report as well. It is only based, however, and this is no excuse, on only a handful of returns out of, we issue up to 150 a month, and Glendale themselves issue over 100 a month. We're talking one return out of 250, and then we're judging customer satisfaction on one card out of 250. It's not really a judgment of customer satisfaction. Silence is consent is what they suggest. Is everybody else happy? Well, I would suggest that we're not garnering enough information. With that in mind, we are and have been discussing with IT and communications, having something on our landing page that when somebody comes on, ask them if they want to take part in a quick snapshot. That way, somebody's not coming onto the system purely to make a complaint, because that, again, that can skew it. So if anybody visits our webpage, they're going to come onto the landing page, ask to answer 2 or 3 questions. We're looking at that now, and hopefully we're going to push something out in the next few weeks. Something at the beginning of this time of year, and again something at the back end of the year, when the summer, we've had the summer to collect our thoughts, or not my thoughts, but the customers have had that opportunity. So that is something else that we're looking at in a way to collect additional information. And I've got no more to add than that at this point.
Duncan?
Okay, yeah, thank you. This is the start of my 4th season here in Nuneaton, Bedworth, and really enjoying it. And since my time here, I'm very positive where we are at this position moving forward. We're currently running at 59 staff, which is increasing to 5 more just after the Easter period, and already we're more or less fully lined up with the amount of people we need for all the operations we've got to carry out. Within them, we're running with, we set our goal at 3 apprentices this year, but with the age of the workforce moving forward and the number coming into retirement over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, we felt that wasn't enough, so we moved that to 6, which we currently have in place, which we're running in partnership with Birchall College, so they're fully funded with proper apprentices. And, you know, bearing in mind with the high horticultural nature of the contract, we feel that's, you know, really important, so we can actually build the key staff on and use the existing staff with the number of years experience they've got to mentor and train them. Glendale Live, that will be fully up and functioning within the next sort of 4 weeks. Basically, it's we sort of talked about it over the last sort of couple of years, but Glendale decided to it's not a cheap option. It's cost us around about £9,000 to implement this. It's basically, rather than the old-fashioned sort of tick sheet type system, the guys actually have handheld sort of smartphones with all the information on it. So literally, if you sort of once you sort of maintain the shrub bed, you mark it on there. If there are any issues, and that goes straight onto the system, which is labelled by Paul and his team to monitor as well. So it's a fully live and up and functioning system. As I say, you know, we've sort of, I think it's around about 20 handsets are in place now. They've been uploaded with all the information, and they'll be up running certainly by mid-May. And that should be a lot quicker from a monitoring point of view, so they can see exactly where we're up to at any one point. Training so far this year, we spent over £12,000 in a training programme. That includes the apprentices, as well as all the trade training that we need to do with the new and upcoming staff that we've got through. Just a few sort of facts and figures. So far this year, just from a waste point of view that's been generated, 383 tonne of green waste since January of this year. A lot of that is obviously, as Paul said, where we've been ripping out shrub beds and maintaining, and of just the usual sort of winter maintenance of shrub beds. So that sort of shows you the amount of sort of work that we've been sort of getting through this period so far. Black waste, which is sort of fly tip and the general sort of bin emptying that we do every day. Since January again, that's running at 245 tonnes. So it shows you the amount of sort of waste that's been generated on the contract. On a really positive note, our CapEx request, which is basically for new equipment moving forward for the contract, has been agreed, and that's going to be coming through in the next sort of week or so. And that was set at £116,500. So it's a new tractor, new verge mowers, new gang mowers, sidearm flail, and big Amazon cut and collect flail. The only elements of work that we previously used subcontractors for, which I'm not a massive fan of because it leaves you at their mercy of when and if they can do it. So that will basically eradicate any need for subcontractors on the contracts. All the sidearm flailing, the rural verges, the hedges, the environmental areas that we're responsible for, that will all be done in-house. And obviously then we've got far more control over that moving forward.
It was 135 rather than 17.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's, yeah.
The extra investment, yeah. We saw today.
There have been a few sort of bad points over the last few months. We've had increasing numbers of our staff being threatened, which is sort of quite worrying. You know, a couple of them just shrub bed work and physically threatened with violence, and which isn't good. And we're doing a footpath down at Griff Hollows at the moment, and one of our members of staff had about 8 youths round him trying to take his equipment off him. And that's quite a worrying sort of statistic really, and that seems to be on the increase that we need to be aware of. we've had attempted theft off the back of vehicles, we've had a trailer stolen from our Miners Welfare Park depot, and just 2 days ago the Miners Welfare Park depot was actually broken into as well, so they're not particularly good points. But as I said, I want to end on a good point, because I'm saying really sort of pleased where we are at the moment. The weather is ideal from what we want. Normally the last few years it's blaming the weather where we are, but it's absolutely ideal moving forward. We've had a really good response from sort of seasonal staff that we take on this time of year. Over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, in the space of the first sort of 3 or 4 weeks, we've had a massive turnover of staff. People think they want to do it for a couple of days, think, oh, don't like this, and leave. And that just causes, you think they spend 2 days being trained before they even go out and try anything, and that's just a bad start to the season. But we've had a really good input of staff, and it's very positive moving forward. I'm really pleased. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've actually got quite a list, so I will rattle through. You talk about getting onto your second cut. There's places like Carisbrook flats in Nuneaton haven't had their first cut yet, and it is so disappointing to be right at the back of the first cut list. Cleaver Gardens has only just been done. We need to actually get a fair amount of grass cutting and get it done early, so that we're not having councillors continuously harangued by it's April and the grass hasn't had its first cut. We had a lot of issues with the litter bin removals. We've had 2 months without some of the litter bins at places like Coronation Walk. Leaf blowing. We have a lot of stuff around places like Cleaver Gardens where your staff go and blow the leaves off the bits and they blow them into doorways or under bins, and then they get wet and soggy and they do slip hazards. And there's quite a few places around, particularly on St Nicholas Park, where there's areas of dead grass that look like they've been weed killed or something. I don't know if you know much about that. Going on to the performance stats, it always seems that contract 3 has the most defect notices, and obviously it's over the winter is the quieter period. But I am actually looking forward to Glendale Live, and I hope you give councillors an access in so we can actually chase up and see when things are due. Because it's actually far better for a councillor to know that grass that the residents are moaning about is actually going to be done a week on Friday or something, rather than you ring up, it's going to be done by the end of the week, and then the end of the week comes, you have to go and look and see if it's been done. Actually, honest information about when things are going to be done is going to cause councillors to be able to tell the public honest information, and then us not to get the repeat complaints. So I hope you can take those little things on board. And I really want, particularly the Carisbrooks and the Cleaver Gardens, not to be on the back of the list. And okay, thank you, Chair.
Any points of clarification?
Which areas would you like on the back of the list then? If you don't want your areas on the back of the list, would you be interested in having Main and Poplar on the back of the list?
Well, there are 2 sites on my patch, and they're both on the back of the list. So we probably actually need to start going around earlier, so it doesn't matter if you're on the back of the list.
So the answer is you haven't got an answer to my question then.
But what is the list? One of the troubles is, as councillors, we don't know.
Chair, I think I've made my point.
Chair, before we go further, is it possible that we get the report instead of a councillor sitting here complaining about whether his area is done? If he's got a complaint in that way, then bring it through the normal channel and not at this committee. Because all he's had is used this opportunity to have a go at them so his area can come out on top, so he ain't behind the list. And that's not what this committee's for. It's time he's told to stop or leave the table and talk about the report that's in front of us, and not because his area's down the list. Because as the councillor said there, where does he want them to go? Which areas does he want? So he can come forward. And that's not what this scrutiny committee is about. And he should be told, if he's going to rattle about it, tell him to leave the table.
I have gone through the proper channels, and I've been accused of not going through the proper channels. I go into their office.
I'm not asking you to answer me or talk to me. Go through the chair.
If you accuse me of stuff, I want the right to reply.
Through the chair.
Excuse, can I ask one?
Councillor Bustridge, I have a question if you'd like to sit down again.
Can I ask you a question, Councillor Condacourt? How do you know you're at the back of the list?
Because they said they're going round for the second time and my grass hasn't been cut yet.
Have you had any residents' complaints?
Lots.
Thank you.
Councillor Bonnick. Point of clarification.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just think, listening to what Councillor Condicore said, I fully understood about the second cut starting and there possibly being some first cuts not completed. So, yeah, well, I think that was the other point that was trying to be made. Well, my point might be that, I know we don't have the chaplain here today, but I think if she was, she'd say something wise that we could all listen to. Thank you.
Are we up for election?
Councillors, please. Any member?
Can I ask?
Councillor Bush.
You said you've invested over £100,000 in machines. Is this new machines or extra machines for the grass?
Some of it's brand new and additional.
It's additional?
Yeah.
So you'll be doing the grass quicker? Because can I say, I'm quite different to Mr Condarker. I went to a residents' meeting on Saturday night and I asked the question, any complaints about Glendale and the grass cutting, and they were full of praise for Glendale. And I must thank you for doing it. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Bonnick.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a few points. I want to ask Mr Daly, I'm not quite sure as I understood about issuing 250 cards and just one customer satisfaction return. Can you just explain that?
Right, we send by post to random addresses.
I see.
200. We send out about 100.
Yeah, I understand now.
A month.
Thank you.
These guys actually physically stick them through letterboxes when they're in the areas.
Yeah.
People don't, you can see the figures
I
are there.
understand now. Thank you very much.
I think there was an issue though, Chair, that possibly in January, February that didn't happen, principally because we were covering cemeteries.
We were. So it didn't happen in January because we had member of staff had a bereavement which was off for 5 weeks. So it didn't happen.
No, that's fine. I just didn't understand what it was about.
No.
My second point, when we do things like, I noticed there's been a lot of tree removals in the borough recently, particularly tree removals alongside rights of way, footpaths. We rely on the county council to maintain the highways for the motor vehicles, but the footpath. Is there any crossing over with street cleaning, presumably, to clear up any debris caused by trees being down? I'm looking as an example the big path that goes, the long path that goes through Maple Park up to the footbridge over the railway. There's a big long line of poplars been taken down there, and the path is a real mess at the moment with twigs and debris from those tree fellings, because there's about 30 trees come down. Obviously they needed to come down, you can see why when you just look at the trunk of the stumps, but
should have been
I think I can add to that because the guys are we discussed it earlier, but Barry set on a group of guys to go out and do all the stump grinding over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
And as part of that, that'll be the work they're going to do as part of they are going to clean. But I will, there's a fair point, and I will liaise with colleagues in street cleansing because it is our guys actually who should be, our street cleansing guys who should be doing the maintenance of the footway.
I hope Councillor Lord will excuse me for bringing that up at this meeting, but it's something I noticed.
No, it's a very valid point, a very fair point.
I've seen there's a couple of small children on small bikes that could quite easily be brought down by these twigs and things. So yeah, I'm very pleased to hear about the apprenticeships. 6 apprenticeships on 59 staff for Councillor Copeland's maths. That works out about 10%, which I think is good. The litter bins that you mentioned about emptying the black bins. Get a lot of confusion with the old red bins for the dog waste. They're no longer required, I understand, because all waste now the bin waste goes for incineration. Yeah. I think it's a point for the council officers perhaps to promote the fact or explain that dog bins are no longer required. You can put your dog waste in any bin because they all get treated the same. And fifthly, I'm a bit concerned about these acts of aggression towards your staff, and I presume there are conditions in place for lone working.
Yes,
Thank you, Chair.
Can I answer the question in relevance to the black waste and the dog bins, whatever? We've actually given Glendale an order. We're doing a bit of bin moving about, and we have actually ordered some new bins to be placed in various locations. We've actually ordered the stickers to go on them as well, which says these bins are for both purposes. So I think they may be with us, I'm not 100% sure, but there will be one attached to everything. Thank you to answer your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. These response forms that have been sent out, you said that there were 1 in 250 coming back. That seems really quite low, actually, and Glendale said that they're doing their own. What would you say your response rate is like?
They go back.
They come to us,
so they all come to the same
everything
place?
comes back to us. Councillor Brown,
They're self-addressed, so they come back to the Borough Council.
All right. I was wondering if you could show members of this committee the forms that are being done, because we'd be quite interested to have a look at them, because it could just be down to poor design. There could be other factors as well. It could be that everybody's completely satisfied, so there's no need to respond, or it could be that they feel like, well, it's one of many options, isn't it? But it could be that people feel like their complaints won't be taken seriously or be acted on. And we'll say this year it seems to be a little bit better than last year. I noticed that most of the grass in my ward has been cut earlier on, but there are some others which I can bring up later. I have noticed that in some areas there seems to be a lot of litter where the grass has been recently cut, and I understand that that's in the constitution that the litter has to be picked up at the same time. I'm concerned that this isn't happening because I've noticed this on 4 different occasions lately, and it's just very concerning, especially since the litter is all strewn up as well as along with the grass and torn up, and of course that's even more hazardous than if it was intact.
That is an issue for groundsmasons contractor chair, because they are supposed to litter pick before they mow.
Yeah.
So if that's not happening, we'll need some site specific so that the relevant operatives can be.
I can give you some.
It was all positive.
Yeah, on the housing sites, what's been agreed moving forward now, because obviously over the last few years, the way the grass growth is sort of going, when we're collecting sites, it's not cost, it's not about weight, it's about time. Obviously, every time you've got a vehicle full of grass, you've got to go and tip it off so it continue. So moving forward, we're going to be changing the decks on our machinery to mulching decks, which sort of literally, on the description of them, they mulch the grass, they've been closed in, they whiz it round, they chop it up and throw it back into the ground. By doing that, obviously, it will increase our sort of productivity between sort of 40 and 60%. So obviously that will increase the amount of time than the rounds, we will almost get down to, a weekly route. We'll continue to, the first couple of cuts will be cut and collect, make sure it's all down, and then from then on it will be sort of mulched.
Thank you. From what I understand what you were saying before, does that mean that the new equipment, using that equipment, will be easier to access sites that have rails surrounding them? Because I know that there are a few in my area that weren't cut for quite a while just because they didn't have the equipment on them at the time. So will that mean that those areas get cut soon?
That's down to planning, obviously, if that's part of my role. Hopefully Glendale Live will improve that. Because what we have done to make sure we get the rounds better, the guys who are actually physically out doing it have actually sat down through the winter period and rerouted and re-rounded. So where there are areas where they need to take different equipment to, that will be on their tick sheets. So if they know they're going to whatever site tomorrow and they're sort of restricted, they need to take the standards, which are narrower, that should improve all that sort of bits and pieces.
Okay, and I'd certainly like a chance to go into specifics after the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to emphasise what Councillor Grant mentioned there. If you could put in mulching decks onto your mowers, it's really important to pick up the litter, especially the tin cans and the glass bottles, because a tin can then becomes a collection of razor blades, doesn't it, if it's chucked back on the ground.
I mean, we take very seriously. It's part of their training. All the staff, not just new staff, and all the existing staff every year go through a 2-day sort of refresher programme. They're all issued with litter pickers, black bags. I'm not saying they don't, because obviously they are, but there's no excuse for them doing that. So.
Thank you.
But again, Chair, if members are aware of that happening, then that needs to be reported back, because that is an issue. It's a contractual commitment that should happen. You need to know so you can raise it with the contract.
There's no other member, just a couple. obviously I agree with Councillor Brown in terms of the list of that information that's been sent to you, or as you'd expect. Yes, cut grass and the list of cut with it, which doesn't look good, which is a shame really. In terms of the edges around these pieces of land in housing, land areas, etc. Obviously your mower goes up and down, doesn't do the edges. So do they come back to do the edges, and if they do, what sort of time scales?
The ones that obviously there's issue with that they're not getting it, that should be done at the same time, they should be streamed.
So it should be the same. Sending you another one now, Paul, sorry. But yeah, on a positive note, the island's actually coming into the town and the entrance to the new museum. Right now. So, are we happy to note the report?
Yes.
Yes. Move on to item 9. Talk now, Councillor Watkins.
It's only going to say positive things anyway. Right, I'm sure you've all read this report. It's been put before you. It was, I chaired it, and it was cross member working group. The recommendations put before you. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. So, fire away for second recommendations.
Councillor Constable, I believe you wanted to speak on this item.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to discuss this much. It hadn't been discussed much at the other committees because it was actually a very productive working party, and we had a very good level of degree between the various political parties. I think a couple of things I really want to bring out. Really, the forward plan was just so important, so we could actually see as scrutiny what was coming up, rather than getting hijacked by things coming up and then us not being able to ask questions or take things to scrutiny. And one thing I really like to do at the County Council, is a lot of either pre-scrutiny before consultations or parallel scrutiny, so that when a controversial item like the parking or whatever came up, we actually had a scrutiny meeting. Because what happened with the parking height, for example, is we couldn't have a scrutiny meeting before the consultation because they said we couldn't call it in. We couldn't have one during the consultation, and then afterwards they said it was an urgent decision, so we couldn't have one then. So without forward plans and scrutiny committees being effective, we don't get any scrutiny. And the absolute biggest one, of course, is the borough plan, which we've got a large area which has never been properly scrutinised, housing targets or anything. The borough plan is the one thing that's running 8 years late and has had trivial amounts of scrutiny. Looking at this document as well, on page 104 of the paperwork, there's actually a really good little table about decision-making principles. And I think we should probably remind ourselves about these a lot more when we do discuss stuff about proportionality, due consultation, respect for human rights, presumption in favour of openness, because lots of things like the renewal of the Glendale contracts, there's lots of things we do that aren't as open as there should be. Clarity of aims and outcomes is really important, and quite often we don't actually explain why we've taken a decision enough. A lot of things go through. So I think there was a really good piece of work to actually look at scrutiny, and I hope the recommendations are taken on board. Thank you.
Any member got any points of clarification? Any member got any questions, comments to Councillor Watkins? Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, I would like to thank the Councillor and the Working Party for all the work on the 105 pages. I've just put through 105 pages. But it seems as though every time we look at this, there's always little bits and pieces we've got to tweak in order to get a working document. And I think a lot of good work has gone into this document. So I would move the recommendations and thank the Working Party for all they've done, because it's some good work's been done in here.
I'll second that.
Any other member wish to speak? move the recommendations as printed on page, need to go over a few pages, don't I?
73.
76 to 70, thank you. 78, if we're happy to endorse the recommendations, can you show hands, please? Now go forward to full council, I believe, on the 26th of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 10, integrated performance report. Yourself, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, if I scoot through this in a different way, I'll pick up the section, so it was non-smiley faces in particular. Just to say, on page 187 you have a summary, a budget summary, and you will note that there is a projected overspend of £172,000 for the services that are within this portfolio. There are two key parts to that, as you'll see. The first is, and we'll deal with this, Cash is here to deal with car parks when we get to it, but you'll see that there's a projected under recovery of income of £218,000 for car parking. In addition, there is a projected overspend on refuse and cleansing and recycling of £230,000. I'm assuming that Cash has been briefed on that. No, okay. I'm sure Glenn would have dealt with that were he not off sick, so we'll endeavour to deal with that when we get to it. I guess the good news, if there is any, is that some of that is offset by the development control planning income is up, as you'll see, by £184,000. So that mitigates some of that. But obviously not all of it, and hence there are some other sort of minor variations as we'll pick up as we go through, but it does still show that, in effect, overspend for the purposes of budgeting against what we anticipated we would be or would be at this stage. So if I can turn to page 189, the first item you'll see is in connection with parks. There is a £17,000 slight overspend on the budget. I've just had a quick word with Paul and he's clarified. As part of the effects of the introduction of the living wage, when those rates were changed, that wasn't anticipated when the budget was set. So it is, it has been something that the Borough Council have been obliged to pay over and above the original budget, and that, I think, accounts for that £17,000 overspend there or thereabouts. There's nothing else to say on that. In terms of the performance standards, you'll see, and Paul's report has touched upon that already in terms of the monitoring standards. In terms of the performance, the third quarter performance, you'll see that the informal areas is still below target as of, I think this was the end of the year, wasn't it? At the end of the calendar year rather than the end of the financial year. So I think it would be very difficult for that to change substantially. So the next quarter report, I'd be very surprised if that was any different, principally because of the way the statistical analysis will work. But as you'll note, that the formal areas are actually just on or about on standard in terms of performance. Unfortunately, the real issue is satisfaction, and that's something that we'll have to come back to you with to get a more meaningful way of measuring. If you recall, we agreed that we would try and come up with a different way of measuring satisfaction. We did do it through the whatever the survey, the whatever it was called. You know what it was called? The Borough survey. But we did for the cost reasons that was discontinued. So we're looking at an alternative now which might get us some more meaningful data. To coin the phrase, it would be good to have something that is statistically significant. And I think to get something statistically significant, you need something in the order of about 650 responses out of the 126,000 people in the borough to get anything that even gets anywhere near a statistically significant response. Unless many members have any questions on that, I'm going to go over the page.
I've still got to come in as well, so you're going to have to go through the report.
Oh, fine, okay. Well, in which case, I'm going to invite Cash now to speak to our page 190, where we've got the ticket sales finance for the borough for the car parking, and also the ticket sales information. So I don't know whether Cash wants to say anything at this stage.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, yes, the graph on page 119 is showing ticket sales down to 963,510. That, in fact, is not correct, that figure. It's incorrect. Apologies for that. I'm not quite sure where those figures came from, but it doesn't include, we need to put that into perspective, it doesn't. Since 17th of April 2016, we increased our tariffs, and Harefield Multi-Storey car park was changed from a pay on foot car park to a pay and display car park. And from that period up until the middle of January this year, the machines were not networked. We changed mobile phone provider from Vodafone to EE, and the machines were not networked for one reason or another, so we didn't have the data for ticket sales for Harefield. So that's one factor. Now, also, we don't have any. It's free parking at Bedworth train station car park in Bedworth. That's a comment there on page 191 in the table there. So we need to understand that there's no longer a ticket. It's free parking, so there's no longer a ticket required. Also, Meadow Street car park is a free car park, so there's no longer a ticket required. And the other factor is that after 6 p.m. as of last April, it's free parking, so again, no ticket is required. That table on page 190 reports ticket sales purely. So when you factor in Harefield Multi-Storey car park, if I use 2015-16 sales figures for that and put those in, and also factor in the after 6 o'clock ticket sales that we don't use anymore, the actual the percentage drop has gone down to about 10% on last year. That's still disappointing. However, that reflects a national trend in terms of ticket sales in similar town centres. We also have to understand that of the last 9 months, Co-op closed, BHS closed as well, and they were major pullers into the town centres. So again, those figures, the 963,000 has to be put into perspective. Basically, I have the figures roughly, instead of 963,000 sales, the sales should be around about 1,078,000 tickets. So that brings us down to about a 10% drop in ticket sales. I said that there's, say, footfall has gone down. We work closely with the Rock Walk management, and they've also experienced the same. Footfall has gone down. Internet shopping is very popular now. You can get click and collect is very popular. And we saw November, Christmas time, our busiest period. People were actually buying more online than travelling into the town centre. Is there any questions? I'm more happy to answer the question.
Obviously, we'll have to come back with the question.
Okay, Chair, thank you. So, if, as I say, if there are any issues, Cash is here to deal with those. I'm just going through now, Chair, to the next non-smiley face. We've got under environmental protection on page 195. There is a a non-smiley face, I suspect it's because in effect we've achieved roughly the same result. So it's not gone up, it's not gone down, so it's stayed the same. So I don't think there's any cause for concern there in terms of performance as far as environmental protection is concerned. However, if you then turn over to 197, refuse and cleansing, this is where we get an indication of the £230,000 overspend on the refuse cleansing and recycling budget. And as you'll see there that there is a significant increase agency costs incurred due to staff sickness. And I think we actually had some significant issues in the in the autumn, early part of this year, with refuse drivers being off sick and having to get drivers in. In fact, I think in some cases we had to, we couldn't run around. We had some significant problems. So it's, I'm not saying that's all down to that particular period, but I think there's been some issues in terms of having to backfill on refuse and cleansing. My understanding is that there is some work ongoing within refuse and cleansing to put in place arrangements for pulling people off other duties in order to support particularly refuse collection. It's the one, if you like, universal service that has to happen. And I think it's a case of making sure that we've got people who are trained up, who, if they're capable of doing that, will be redeployed from other duties in order to get out and about on the rounds. So, but that's my understanding in terms of that. And similarly, if you turn over the page, you'll see it's a similar situation in terms of recycling, and I'm guessing that that's principally down to green waste, which is our responsibility, not the recycling contractors. So we wouldn't have that issue with them, but we would with green waste collection. Other than that, Chair, very quickly, we come on to the risk register. And risk register, this is the abridged version for this panel. You'll notice that we've changed the format now to a 4x4 grid. This is something that we want to do to try and simplify things. It has now been rescored in accordance with that grid. Largely the indicators are the same. It's just that there's less room for manoeuvre in terms of whether it's a red, amber, or a blue. As far as the risk register is concerned, there is this is slightly out of date. There is a review programme to be undertaken, I think, at the end of April, which will bring it up to date. So, for example, if I can just draw your attention to R4 on page 206, which goes on to page 207, you'll see under R4 there's reference to a number of things that are planned that have moved on. So the head of town centres and marketing, Jonathan White, is now actually in post and has been since February, so that will be picked up and updated. Transforming Nuneaton, you will know we've been successful with that in terms of the monies that have been awarded through the LEP, and I think there will be more information coming on that and how it's due to be spent shortly. The detail of that at this stage, and obviously obviously the bid feasibility study is ongoing, but I'm not aware yet whether or not that is to progress or not. I think that they're out doing the field work on that, and clearly, as you are aware, the borough plan will be coming forward in May for consideration by Cabinet and Council, with a view to having it recommended for submission to the Secretary of State. So the employment and allocations in the borough plan will go forward at that point. So there's a number of things that will change on this between then and now. It won't necessarily alter the status of the gross or the net risk, but it certainly gives us a measure of comfort to know that these things are coming forward and that they might have some impact, all being well. So I don't want to say any more on that. The only other thing to come to then is the performance report at the end. There is and again this was as of January for December 2016 data, so it has moved on since then, but you'll note that the revenue outturn, it was forecasting in December a slight budget underspend of 8,000. That's gone up slightly to about 61,000, I think, for March, the end of March. But and similarly, the HRA projecting a 94,000 underspend. I think it's more than that. I think it's quite significant sum actually. The only other thing I wanted to say is that I believe council tax collection has nudged into the green, so to speak, towards the end of the year. But you will see this in due course anyway, so I don't say any more on those. Again, the only other thing to highlight, and I think it's on page 216, is obviously sickness absence. Again, projected 10 days FTE sickness absence. That is now looking at coming in at about 12.2 days for the year. So it is an issue that needs to be looked at. I've nothing further to add.
Thank you very much, Chair. This seems to be the only scrutiny panel that's got a major overspend on its financial summary. Clearly the car parks has been the fiasco we expected it to be, with a hike in pricing actually reducing the number of people using them. We have a surplus from the development control because developers are rushing ahead of the borough plan to get in applications without having to pay community infrastructure levy or as much 106 monies. We have a lot of issues with planning policy. It is underspent by £60,000, and yet it couldn't send out a newspaper to residents at the time of the borough plan. We have issues with land drainage, underspent, but yet it is not doing the job it's supposed to. And we have things like economic development, which is underspent, and that could at £38,000 underspent. And that could be doing things like looking at the new arts centre for the Nuneaton and Bedworth. So actually some of these underspends is not good news because we're not doing the things we're supposed to be doing. I really have an issue with lots of these smiley faces, Smiley faces for car parking. Well, that's a joke, isn't it, with less and less people coming. And particularly on page 194, where we talk about this employment ratio. And you've got a smiley face as you go from allegedly 93 to 97%. But if you actually look at the physical numbers for third quarter performance, we had 56,600 people employed in the borough. We now have 54,600. These stats are very unreliable in terms of down to that because they're only surveys, but it's actually showing less and less people in the borough have a job. And so we should be worried because this ratio that you use is only the ratio of people who are economically active who actually have a job. So by people retiring or leaving the borough, the number of workers is going down. So if you look at the figures, it looks like we're losing employees, people leaving the borough, and that is never good news. Refuge and street cleansing, we urgently need to look at what we're doing. It's very, very hard to run the refuge collection service, and we should seriously be considering working jointly with Rugby and North Warwickshire to run a combined at least collection service so that you've got the resilience of, if Rugby's got a spare member of staff, then Nuneaton and Bedworth from North Warwickshire, to try and run all these separate waste collection authorities is inefficient, and you keep having to take on agency staff. And I mean, the big thing on the risk register, the borough plan, 8 years late, you've lost the head of planning policy now. We have the issue with every single authority in Coventry and Warwickshire objecting to our plan. I've just seen the objection letter from Rugby. it makes it clear. Our plan has been...
Chair, are we here on the borough plan or him score? He's got the video there making political points for it so we can put it on there.
Councillor
The
Lloyd.
borough plan
Councillor
is not on it.
Councillor Lloyd, please.
Well, do something about him.
Councillor Lloyd, he's allowed to speak on the agenda.
Just my last...
And you've been insulted, unfortunately.
Well, I just want my last sentence, which is we are 10% contingency in our borough plan for non-delivery, and every other authority in Warwickshire has said we don't need that 10%. So that is part of our problem. Thank you, Chair.
Does any member got any points of clarification? No? Thank you very much. Moving back to members. Any member wish to speak on the planning and environment integrated performance report?
I've got a few questions in regards to the car parks. I read something recently about the effects of the new pound coins on the machines used in car parks. I just wanted to know what the situation was with that.
Basically, we had to have the machines configured to accept the new pound coin. That's across the board throughout all the, not just park industry, but cash machines are used.
Okay, that's
but we haven't had any complaints about machines not accepting the new coins.
My second point about Harefield Road car park, I personally think there's quite an issue with the change from pound display to pound display from pound foot. So I use this car park quite a lot on a Saturday, and I've got to say I've noticed a considerable difference between kind of when it was pay on foot and now it's pay on display. And I think a lot of people are opting not to use this particular car park because of that change. And we've got the issue of with Asda next door and with also the Pets at Home car park and other car parks locally. I think people are kind of opting to use those instead and not paying and just doing the 2 hours free in Asda. So I think there's a potential big issue there really, and it's affecting people using that particular car park.
Are you referring to the antisocial behaviour?
No, I'm just talking about use of the car park. I've noticed since the change, there's just barely anyone's opting to use that car park, because if they don't want to pay and display, they're going to go to the rope walk, and obviously in that particular area of town, I just think if people can see parking spaces in Asda, they're going to think we're going to use this car park, and also with the issue of that car park, not giving change as well. A few people have approached me about that particular car park and issues with that, and issues with the change from method of payment.
I mean, that particular car park was never that busy, even when we had your system.
Yeah.
I do take on board your point that yes, we had.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate there was never full, but I've noticed a considerable difference between people using it. So.
Yes, you're quite right. There is free parking within close proximity, and you will always get that for a while. And in terms of machines not giving change, unfortunately, that's just the way the system is. However, we do have cashless parking there, so they can telephone the company and then pay without the need to actually use it.
I just feel that in areas of the town whereby there are options to park for free and not use council car parks, it's probably better to make it more accessible and make it more attractive to use those car parks, and the pay on foot option is going to be the most attractive option, which is why so many people use the rope walk car park. So I just think that change wasn't necessarily a good one.
So, sorry, Chair, my understanding of that was because the intention behind it was to turn the Harefield Road car park into a commuter car park for the railway station. Okay. And because of the, if you have pay on foot, you have to have a presence there whilst it is open. The idea was to make it pound foot so people could, so it's open 7 till 7 and people can park and just go without worrying about whether or not they can get out if there's a problem with the barriers or anything like that. So that was the rationale, as I understand it, for moving it to pound foot.
We did, sorry, thank you for that, Phil. Chair, we did increase the hours of operation to make it more attractive to commuters. We opened rather than 7 o'clock in the morning, we opened at 6 o'clock in the morning, and rather than shut at 7 in the evening, Monday to Friday, we shut at 9 o'clock in the evening to make it more attractive to commuters. And we also reduced the permit price from £460 a year to £300 a year. So you could park there for less than £1 a day, effectively. So we have sort of tried to catch the commuter belt.
Did you say 7 till 9?
Yeah, to 9 p.m. from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
The thing on the sorry, Chair, but the thing on the side of the car park says 7 till 7.
No, not half an double check that.
Sure, I read that. Stand corrected.
Thank you very much. Following on from Councillor Deffen's comments about the car parking charges and people using the Asda to perhaps avoid those because of the new parking system being unattractive, I'd also suggest that by reducing the car parking charges and well publicising reduction in car parking charges may lead to some sort of increase in usage of those car parks. But also regarding the report, I noticed that you've got this system of red to green, and it seems to have been printed in black and white, and they're fairly indistinguishable on the grid. So perhaps they can be printed in colour at future meetings, just putting it forward.
No.
I think we've been there, Chair, many times.
No.
What we ought to do, though, Chair, is perhaps rather than use colours, use hatching and dots and things so that you can see the difference.
That's better, and it's more cost effective, so that can be changed.
That would be a very good suggestion.
And yes, agreed with previous comments about the smiley faces probably being handed out too easily, particularly regarding the borough plan. Yes, it's been delivered, but perhaps to be generous, a neutral face at the very least, because of the length of time it took to deliver it. So, yeah, I think that how are smiley faces decided out of interest?
It's where it's a trend, it will be based upon the trend looking at the previous quarter. So if the trend's up, then it'll be smiley. If it's down, it'll be a frown. If it's a case where there's an absolute target, so there's a defined target as opposed to a measure, then of course it'll be a smiley or a frown, depending on whether you're on target or below target. It depends. We have what we call measures, which are improvement measures, and then we have some specific targets in some cases, and it depends on the service that you're looking at as to which methodology you use.
And of course, with the borough plan, you're going on the most recent target being fulfilled as opposed to the very original target, which was been quite a few years ago.
Well, I mean, obviously, I won't get into a debate about Borough Plan Chair, but we do an annual monitoring report as part of it. Used to be a statutory requirement, although that obligation is gone, but we've carried on doing that. As part of that, we're required to update the timetable. So we have done that as we've gone along. So you're right, you can go back to whenever, but obviously things have changed. So the goalposts move, we move the targets accordingly.
So to sum it up, the procedure that you've used has led to a favourable sort of appraisal?
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I'd say as government guidance has changed or government policy has changed, we've had to change with it.
Comes down to the government again, doesn't it?
Yeah, I am quite mystified with the car parking. You said your ticket sales are not 963,000 but 1,078,000. So we're still losing £218,000 down on budget. even though those we've sort of found all of a sudden another 100,000 tickets.
Yes. That's right. The income levels are correct.
The income levels are correct,
Under
but the ticket sales are not.
That's correct. That's correct. We have a separate reporting system for income. Income collection is correct because income collection physically falls into the machines, and the ticket sales, people may not take a ticket, but the money we may not, the tickets are being taken, sorry, but the money is being recorded, but the ticket is not being recorded. Because a hair-free Woodfield car park was not networked from the middle of April last year, 2016, to the middle of January this year. And based on 2015-16 figures, in Harefield Woodfield car park, for that period we sold about 115,000 tickets.
Yeah. So you said you're 10% down on footfall. Is that
would suggest that's correct.
That's, yeah, but it's still £218,000 down on budget due to the price increase.
I don't know if it is due to the price increase.
That was a leading question, Chair. I think I have to point out that was a leading question.
Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Chair. I just need a bit of an explanation because I think I'm probably reading this back to front. Page 198 and 199, the household waste projected, the target for next year is sort of like considerably higher, and yet the recycling target is going down. I thought the objective was to recycle more and incinerate less. Am I reading this right or wrong? I think we should be promoting recycling, so we're doing more of it, which hopefully at the same time will reduce the kilograms of household waste collected.
I think this was raised at the last meeting, Chair, or the meeting before. As I understand it, and I can only repeat what my colleagues have said at these meetings previously, there is an issue about recycling, which is, well, there's two issues actually. The first is that because of the packaging regulations, the amount of recyclables is decreasing and the weight of it is decreasing. So you could be recycling the same volume but not as much weight, and because they do it by weight, you appear to be recycling less. The second is that, and you will know this, that the recycling industry has gone through quite a difficult period in terms of some of the recyclables that we have been recycling, but for which the market has effectively collapsed. Partly, as I understand it, because what happens in China, amongst other things. So there has been, I think, a double whammy there, which is impacting in terms of what we're trying to do. And I think that's what's been reflected in terms of those statistics. And by definition, I suppose, and it is much more complicated now than it was, some people do get confused by what can and what can't go in your brown bin, and therefore they default to the black bin as a default. But I understand, and I think this was raised at the last meeting, we are undertaking some more education exercises with the schools, with putting in literature out, putting tags onto the bins and that sort of thing, to try and encourage people to recycle and to be clear about what can and what cannot go into the recycling bin, to give them a bit more confidence.
Well, thanks for that. I do agree. When we said it's as simple as ABC, it's not. No. But also I think that encouraging recycling is it's got to be a good thing if it's going to reduce the amount of household waste. Okay, I've lost my track there, but thank you. Thanks for that explanation.
Can I just say, I've got 3 bags of shredded paper that I shredded, and they wouldn't take it even though I put it in recyclable bags. They'll only take it in a brown bag or a cardboard box. And I did email Mr. Shields that, asked him, and that's what he told me.
You know, I had some I put in cardboard, Weetabix boxes and things on the top and refused, so I don't do it anymore.
No.
I waste it now. I was religious, I don't bother anymore.
I shredded it, I've got a lot of paperwork.
I do, I throw it away now.
From years ago, shredded it.
I don't recycle anymore.
We're
I didn't know.
digressing, gentlemen.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know.
Your composter?
Councillor Bond, have you
Yeah, I was
today?
going to say what my colleague at the end there says. I just, my neighbours, I don't shred anything, my neighbours shred, and it goes in my compost bin. It's great stuff, the worms love it.
Yep.
But the point, oh God, I've lost it again now.
Is that a senior moment?
Worms. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just, because Councillor Bond did make the point, and I just need to deal with the other point that he made, which was obviously the difference between the two tables. The kilograms of household waste collected per household, we have a target of 555 kilograms per household, and as you'll see, the actual performance is less than that. So actually, we're collecting less household waste, which is good. Low is good.
Yeah, thank you.
The recycling, our target is 45%, and we are, with the use of very big lines, we are above target, so that is also good for the recycling. We're 0.75% above target. But obviously, if you compare it to last year, then obviously we haven't quite performed as well, but by this time last year. But on the assumption that we carry on as we are, we will still come in just above target. So that again is good.
Yeah, I see your point, but I think we should set the target too high and fail slightly, because then we're encouraging more recycling. I don't really see it this way. We're always going to be a plus, aren't we? We're always going to get the smiley face.
Yeah, but the public won't know the target.
Okay. Yeah.
Just going back to the car parks. Understood that very well, you know, but and appreciate the networking challenges you've had at Harefield Road. But due to the significant downturn in monies, I get the ticket elements, you know, but in hard cash. Do we have any mechanisms or plans in place to mitigate that? You know, I understand the national trend of online shopping and everything else, but you know, I perhaps think we could be a little bit more agile in adapting to the needs of our shoppers and citizens and encouraging them into the town centre and increasing footfall rather than, you know, taking a blunt approach of price hike.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the only reason, I get that, but I'm just trying to understand whether we're being a bit more innovative or not in our approach.
We're always looking at new ways, Chair. We're always looking at new ways to encourage people in, and it is quite complex. A lot of it depends on what's on offer in the town centre. That said, with Jonathan White, the newly appointed town centre manager, in fact I had a meeting with him 2 days ago to look at footfall and figures. He wants to have a detailed breakdown of each car park, the number of tickets sold and the times our busiest period, and he'll try to analyse that data with me together with the data he will be looking at in terms of, I think he's introducing sensors, foot sensors in the centralised area to see where people are travelling from, where they're travelling to. There's going to be a Wi-Fi system in place in the Nuneaton town centre to begin with, just to see people's shopping habits, where they're going to, how long they're spending, the dwell time. So we'll try and bring all this information together and look at ways to encourage people to come into the actual town centre. It may well be, I mean, you know, bus departures have stabilised in the region. However, I don't know for a fact whether more people are travelling by bus now, or whether people are sharing car journeys. That's something that might come out of the analysis.
When do you anticipate the output of that analysis?
That's something that I'll speak to Jonathan wide to that. He's only just started with this. So I think it'll be a good few months before we can come to any real conclusions. And then from the conclusions we can look at strategies.
Well, just to add to that, I was going to mention that, but if you look in the risk register, there is risk R4, which is very much about rejuvenating the town centres. We've been, obviously we've now recruited Jonathan to his post. We've also approved already as part of the capital programme a £200,000 investment, part of which is to fund the Wi-Fi, but there are other initiatives that are going to come on the back of that. And we've just had clarification from the government that we've been successful with the transforming Nuneaton bid, and there is to be, I don't know whether the figures, I can't say the figure because I don't know if it's in the public domain or not, but there is a figure of many millions of pounds that have been awarded to the council, well, to the Borough Council and the County Council to spend on regeneration within for the transforming Nuneaton project. So within all of that, there are various things going on in order to look at what we can do to regenerate certain parts of the town in order to increase footfall. I can't say too much because I don't know quite who knows what and how much is in the public.
I think it's in the public domain, you know, Crewe being a similar sort of town to us, similar dynamics. I think they've been awarded circa 100 million. So I think that's in the public domain, and people are rightly informed that, you know, we should get our fair share of the pie as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, well, I just have this thing in my head. I just don't understand personally, and it happens in, not sure, I'm speaking about nationally now, how we have as many shops as we had 15 or 20 years ago. And people want as many shops, but they don't want to shop in as many shops because they do use the internet. And I think we often get thrown at us Hinckley, for instance. It's had new development that's doing really well. Now we can argue all day about where the money come from and whatever, but sadly what it does as well is it affects another part of Hinckley, because you can go to Hinckley and see this good thing that's happening there, well, whatever your views of it, but it's not affecting the whole thing. We could spend money, we'll get a magical money and spend it in one part of Nuneaton, and it can affect another part of Nuneaton town centre, because people are that fickle. They'll go to, now going back to the internet thing and my shops thing, I just do not understand how they're still there. I'm retired now, and I, for my sins, the guy that comes from, well, there's two of them that come from delivery companies. They come, I know them personally, I know them by name, because the people next door to me, either side, are at work. So my hall is often, every day, well, wrong. Most days there's something in there. I've got a problem with that, but that's what it's like now, isn't it? And I don't know, and this, I think everybody, well not everybody, but the vast majority of people, and you see it on social media all the time, they want things to be how they were. But they don't actually want it to be like, because they're the same people that are on the computer and getting a delivery, which some of it comes to me, and it's not mine. But they say that's life nowadays. And I don't know where the answer is, but you get this money that's around to do these sort of things. I'm not convinced. Just my view.
As no other member indicates, obviously the integrated performance report also recovers the risk register, so has any member got anything on the risk register? No, you've all read it.
It will be updated shortly, Chair, anyway, so, and then come back to.
And we move on to item 11, the wage programme.
Mrs. Chair, there's 3 items left on there from the programme for this year. I presume that you will want to carry them forward next year, and whoever is on that panel can chew them over at that point and decide whether they want to retain them. I haven't received any new items, so it is. But you've nearly finished it.
Just under any other items, item 12, obviously that's a heading after the allotment review, obviously will restart the strategy. Julie will be sending that today. For those that were on it, so that's yourself, Eugene, Christine, myself. So that we can carry on with the strategy, because that's important, that it needs to be done quickly. Goes to cabinet for adoption. I thought there were any other items, so thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Good, thank you. What for? Don't get me wrong. I've been trying to find out. I shop like a young girl there.
But if it's for the sake of doing it,
I like it.